Hey everyone, we are back with Because of Mr. Terupt. This is part 10, I think we're on. And Because of Mr. Terupt by Rob Bouye. We don't know what's happened to Mr. Terupt. It is beginning of March and something really terrible has just happened. It all stemmed from this whole lot of thinking we've been doing during this book, and we're going to continue on to see what happened with Mr. Terupt. Something very awful. We still have a lot of questions that need to be answered. It's going to start with Jessica. Act 9, Scene 1. It's been a few weeks since Mr. Terupt went into a coma. I felt numb when I first heard. My mother got a phone call on the night it happened from Miss Williams. The principal was calling all the parents. Mom hung up the telephone and explained his situation. I sat paralyzed, unable to move or speak. It was the second time in less than a year that I was in disbelief. The first time was when Mom told me about Dad and his girlfriend. The day after the accident, our class had a substitute. I don't remember her name. I only remember our classroom being silent. We were given some silly worksheets to keep us busy, but no one could concentrate, not even Luke. Instead, we stared blankly at the papers or out the windows, each of us lost in an ocean of thoughts and a roller coaster of emotions. Mrs. Williams came into our classroom later that morning. Boys and girls, I came up here to talk to you about our Mr. Terupt, she said from the front of the room. I want you to know the truth and not some rumor that might be floating around. Mr. Terupt is in a coma, which means he's not conscious. That wasn't all Miss Williams said, but that's all I remember. I already knew the truth, but I wasn't ready to hear her or anyone else talk about it so freely. I knew about comas. People don't always wake up from them. It wasn't fair. I needed comfort. I wanted to read The Bridge of Terabithia and Missing May. I wanted the company of Jessie Aarons and Summer and Uncle Bob. Before Miss Williams finished, I did hear one other thing she said. She claimed that the snowball incident was an accident, not anyone's fault. I sure didn't believe that, and I know my classmates didn't believe it either. I wondered if Mrs. Williams thought that Mr. Terupt had let things go too far, and if she did, would he be getting in trouble? I sure hoped not. He'd been dealt with enough already. Besides, Miss Williams was the one who gave us special permission to go outside. We could blame her, but I didn't want to see anyone get in trouble. I just wanted Mr. Terupt to wake up and fix this mess. Luke. I wanted to go and see Mr. Terupt. My mom and dad didn't think it was a good idea, but I wouldn't listen. I didn't stop pestering them about it. I needed to go. Eventually, they gave in. I stepped off the hospital elevator and stared down the long hall. Mr. Terupt was in one of those rooms. Nurses moved around behind some desk. I heard some of them laughing. How could they laugh? How could they laugh when my teacher was in a coma? They grew quiet as I walked past. I felt some of them look at me and my mom, but I just kept walking until I saw his name on the door. Terupt, room 404, a palindrome, just like our classroom. I stopped and took a deep breath. I felt Mom's hand on my shoulder. I walked in. I saw him, on his back, perfectly still in his bed. Tubes poked into his arms. A mask covered his face. Machines beeped. His eyes stayed closed. He didn't move, not an inch. Only his chest rose up, then fell down with each frail breath. I wanted to say something. I wanted to tell Mr. Terupt I was there. I wanted to tell him he was going to be okay. I wanted to, but I couldn't. I tried. And I felt a lump in my throat begin to choke me. I didn't want to cry. I told myself not to cry. I had coached myself not to cry, but I couldn't stop it. Tears welled up in my eyes and fell down my cheeks. I turned and ran out of the room. Mr. Terupt was going to die. I just knew it. I saw him. I saw what he looked like. He was going to die. My teacher was going to die. The elevator doors opened and I stepped in, my mom right behind me. How could he have let this happen? Why did he put so much trust in us? He should have learned from my plant concoction. He knew it probably wasn't a good idea, but he let me do it anyway. Just like he knew our rough play outside probably wasn't a good idea, but he let it go again. He should have yelled at us. He should have yelled at Peter for the frisbee. He should have yelled at him for the puddle of water. He should have yelled so that we knew he was serious, so this would have never happened. He should have stopped us. Now he was going to die. We stepped off the elevator and walked to our car. As we pulled away, I saw the word hospital written on a sign. Mr. Terupt slept in a hospital. Dollar word. I almost smiled. Jeffrey. Terupt's in a coma. I know what that's all about. I remember from when I was little. Comas are terrifying. I'm never going back to a hospital. Those places are full of bad memories and bad luck. I'd like to see Terupt, but I can't visit him. I can't do it. Luke told me he was scary. I know. People in comas die. It should have been me in that coma, not Michael. It should be me in that coma, not Terupt. Peter's snowball should have hit me. Now our teacher is going to die. This sucks. Brody, great timing, bro. This sucks. School sucks. Everything sucks. It was better when I didn't care. Anna. I heard Luke telling Jeffrey that he went to see Mr. Terupt in the hospital, that it was awful, and that Mr. Terupt wasn't awake or moving. But I couldn't help feeling the way I did. I wanted to go and see him too. I just didn't think I could do it alone. So I asked Jessica and Danielle to go with me. We sat at lunch. We were quiet. No one talked much, not since the accident. Anna, what's wrong? Jessica asked. She was always good at knowing when something's not right. Nothing, I said. I pulled my PB&J apart. Just tell us, Danielle said. I still didn't say anything. I focused on my sandwich, picking at it, but eating nothing. Come on, Danielle urged. I blurted out, I want to go and see him. Silence. I brushed my sandwich pieces into a pile. I noticed Danielle and Jessica weren't eating either. The three of us busied ourselves with staring at our food. Me too, Jessica finally said. Really? Danielle said. Aren't you guys scared to go? Yes, I said. I scooched forward. So let's go together. Will you guys go with me? I will, Jessica said, pushing her food aside. Think your parents will let you? Danielle asked. She was asking both of us, but I answered. I already asked my mom. She says she'd take us. I'll try, Danielle said. I want to go. We're stronger when we stick together, remember? Jessica said. Just like Mr. Terupt told us. Her voice got quiet as she mentioned his name. We got quiet. We didn't talk about him anymore. It hurt too much. Danielle. I knew Mom and Grandma would have a fit about me going to the hospital with Anna, especially with her mother. But I didn't care, not this time. I found the courage to ask them because it was important to me. We were sitting in the kitchen preparing dinner. I peeled the potatoes. Grandma peeled the apples for one of her delicious pies. Mom managed everything else. When do you think the snow's going to be gone? Grandma asked. Farmers love to talk weather. A nice hot apple pie did sound wonderful in this cold, snowy weather. I inhaled deeply and then took the plunge. I want to go and see my teacher, I said. Anna's mother's driving her and Jessica. I'd like to go with them. You're not going anywhere with that girl and her mother. We've already told you that, Grandma snapped. Mother, Mom said, I'll handle this. Keep an eye on dinner. Danielle, come with me. I don't like it, Grandma said. Apple peels missed the pile and flew onto the floor. I'm so grateful my mom pulled me away. I love Grandma, but she's like a piece of iron, unbendable. And forget about the teacher thing. In her mind, a teacher's still the person that raps you on the knuckles with a ruler or across the backside with a paddle. She doesn't get Mr. Terupt at all. According to Grandma, this whole incident was his own fault. Seems to me that teacher of yours has only himself to blame, Grandma said one night while doing dishes. If he had more control over them boys, especially that Peter, this wouldn't have happened. I stopped drying my plate in my hands. He needed a licking months ago, and a good teacher would have given him one. My plate smashed onto the kitchen floor. I didn't mean to drop it. Mom, on the other hand, she gets it. I've told her about Mr. Terupt many times, so I know she understands how special he is. We sat on my bed, side by side, not looking at each other, but at the wall across from us. I'd hung my sketch of Mr. Terupt there. You really think you want to see him? Mom asked. Yes. It's not going to be easy. He's going to have machines and tubes hooked up to him. He's not going to look at you or see anything. I know. Luke was talking in school about his visit. He said it was scary. And I don't like you being around Anna or her mother. But I also think it's probably better that you go with your friends than alone. Charlie could drop me off and pick me up. The bed bounced as I twisted to face Mom. It sounded like she was about to agree. Please? Anna. It was time for us to go to the hospital. Jessica and her mother were already at my house. Our mom sat in the kitchen drinking coffee, like they often do now. Jessica and I sat around with some books, but even she found it difficult to focus enough to read. Danielle's here, I announced as soon as I saw the pickup truck pull into our snowy driveway. Mom came to the porch door to greet her with me. Oh my goodness, I heard Mom say to herself. She didn't even realize I was staring right at her. Same old red farm truck. Did she know that truck? I didn't get it. Hi, Danielle, I said as Danielle came up the steps. This is my mom, Terry. Hi, Danielle, Mom said. Come on in out of the cold. Danielle stomped the snow off her shoes on her welcome mat. I took her coat and hung it on our rack. It's nice to finally meet you. Anna has told me so much about you, Mom said. They shook hands. It's nice to meet you too, ma'am, Danielle said back. Thank you for letting me come with you. I'm glad you could join us, Mom said. And you can call me Terry. I led Danielle farther into our house. When I looked back, Mom stood gazing out the door. After a few long seconds, she turned away. She smiled at me and said, Why don't you give Danielle a quick tour of the house and hang out for a few minutes, then we'll go. What were you looking at? I asked. Nothing really. That's my brother Charlie, who dropped me off, Danielle said. I didn't know you had a brother, I said. Yeah, he's 27, a lot older than me. He works on the farm with my dad and grandpa. I looked at Mom. She's 27 too. He drives that red Ford everywhere, Danielle said. Always has, Mom said. Does it still have a dent in the driver's side door? Yes, ma'am, Danielle said. My jaw dropped. What was going on? How did Mom know that? And why wasn't Danielle as shocked as me about her knowing? I looked at Mom, but before I could get anything out of my mouth, I didn't know what to say anyway. She said, A quick tour, Anna. All right, so our blood gets thicker here. Now we know that Anna's mom, she was one ostracized, and that's why Danielle hasn't been able to come over. But Danielle's older brother drops her off, and Anna's mom knows him. So something's up here. Everything gets connected. Now back to Danielle. You're young, just like my brother, I wanted to say to Anna's mother, but I didn't want to be disrespectful. So I didn't say anything as she stood staring out the door at Charlie. I could tell Anna was playing matchmaker again, but I didn't say anything about that either. My family would never want to see Charlie and Terry together. Never. I also met Jessica's mom. She was very nice. You can call me Julie or Miss Reitman, whichever you're more comfortable saying, she said. Anna's house was simple, but nice. I guess you didn't need a big old house when it was only you and your mom. The thing I liked best about Anna's place was the artwork hanging on some of the walls. I took a closer look at one sketch and read the name, Terry Adams, at the bottom. Anna's mother was an artist? I looked down at the sketch I held in my hands, the one that came from my bedroom wall. I had brought it to leave in Mr. Terupt's room. Mrs. Adams must have noticed me looking at her work and my work. Is that one of your sketches? She asked. Anna has told me you're a beautiful artist. I held the drawing out for her to see, but I didn't say anything. Well, I'd say Anna was right. This is a lovely piece, Danielle. Thank you, ma'am, I said. You've done some wonderful things with shadowing and texture. She pointed to different areas of my sketch. I'm not sure what that means, ma'am, but thank you. Next time you come over, I'd be happy to do some sketching with you, she said, and I'll give you a few pointers if you'd like. Next time I come over, she had said. Anna and Jessica and her mom joined us. Told you she was an amazing sketch artist, Anna said to her mom. Miss Adams smiled at us. Come on, Danielle, I'll show you some of Mom's other drawings in my bedroom. I followed Anna, but not before I returned Miss Adams' smile. I wondered what could possibly be the bad influence in Anna's house. I liked it here, and I liked the two people who lived here. I also knew Grandma wouldn't be as easily convinced. After hanging out in Anna's bedroom, it was time to go. On the car ride, the three of us sat in the back seat. Jessica held her book, Anna held her plant, and I held my special sketch. We were all quiet. I stared out the window at the passing snowbanks and tried to keep from thinking about the snowball day, that was impossible. For the rest of my life, I knew that snow would trigger my memory of the accident. Jessica. Act 9, Scene 2. Characters. Me, played by me. Julie, my mother. Danielle, my friend. Anna, my friend. Terry, Anna's mother. Action. The elevator doors opened. We stepped into the White Hall. I thought of my first day of school, when my heart had thumped in my chest. The smell of disinfectant had lingered in the hallway. The smell of rubbing alcohol and iodine dominated this hospital hallway. Instead of the chatter of school kids arriving after a summer vacation, the only thing I could hear was the incessant beeping of those scary machines. This was way worse than the first day of school. I swallowed. I gripped and squeezed and fidgeted with the book in my hands. Al Capone does my shirts. On that first day, Mr. Terupt had told me that he liked happy endings, so I brought him this book. I knew that he wouldn't be able to see or read it, but I wanted him to have it. Plus, having something in my hands helped me with my nerves. I'm glad his door wasn't too far away, otherwise I might not have made it. But I did, and so did Danielle and Anna. We were there for each other. We stopped just outside the door. The black marker spelled out Terupt. I rubbed my finger on it. It didn't smear. I looked at Danielle and Anna. There was no hiding our fear. My mother and Terry stood behind us for support, but they also let us do this on our own. I looked back at them. We're right here, Mom said. We'll come in with you, Terry added. I took a deep breath and readied myself for what I would see. Anna. How are you doing? Mom asked. I shook my head. The hallway was so sad and frightening and long. Beeping and coughing and moaning noises came from everywhere. Mom placed her hand on my shoulder. I'm here, she said. How did you know about the dent in Charlie's truck? I whispered. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'll tell you later. Do you know him? Yes, I know Charlie, Mom said, but I had no idea he had a little sister. We stopped. Mr. Terupt's door was cracked open, but not enough for me to see inside. Suddenly, my worries and questions about Mom and Charlie vanished. They were quickly replaced by all my worries for Mr. Terupt. Was I ready for this? Danielle, Jessica, and I looked at each other and did our best to prepare for what was coming next. Danielle. There was no turning back. Dear God, it's Danielle. Please be with me. I'm going to need your help. I guess I could have waited in the car or in the lounge, but being with brave friends kept me moving forward. Beep, beep, cough, cough, hack, 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 moan, moan, groan. The chorus of hospital noises made me cringe. I felt my shoulders pushing into my ears. We walked past an old lady sitting in the hallway. She was shaking and drooling in her wheelchair. I could hear Grandma saying, "You better put me in the ground before you send me off to one of them places with all them drooling geezers." For a second, I laughed inside, thinking of that, but just for a second. We stopped. The sign on the door said Terupt. The door was partially open, but I couldn't see inside. That's probably a good thing, because I may have run back to the car had I seen what Mr. Terupt looked like. The three of us nodded at each other silently. We were ready, or so we thought. This is when I'll need you most, she prays. Jessica. Act 9, Scene 3. Action. Mr. Terupt's door stood silently ajar, so I slowly pushed it open and stepped into his room. He wasn't alone, but he didn't have a roommate. He had a visitor, Alexia. I stopped. Danielle and Anna saw her too. We all stopped. Alexia was by Mr. Terupt's bed, her back to us. She didn't know we were there. I could hear her talking to him. Like, "I've been trying to be nice, Teach. I've been quiet. I don't know, what else to do. I haven't been mean. You'd be happy about that, Teach. I've been doing it your way. But, I still need your help. I need you to come back. Everyone needs you back." I stood right beside Alexia now, but she remained unaware. She buried her face in Mr. Terupt's bed and sobbed. I looked at my teacher. He rested peacefully in his white bed sheets amid tubes going in and out of his body and screens with green numbers and lines on them, beeping noises. I felt him telling me what to do. I reached out and placed my hand on Alexia's back. She lifted her head and looked at me through her tear-filled eyes. I started crying then too. Alexia stood up and we hugged, a big hug. "I'm so sorry," she said. I felt her squeeze me tight. "Me too," I said. "I've never been to California," she blubbered. "My mom threw my dad out of the house last year. He never got sick." Alexia sobbed into my shoulder. I squeezed her tight now. Through choked tears, I said, "My dad's not around either. He's still in California with his girlfriend." We held the hug. Not with lazy arms, but strong arms. We squeezed all our sorries out in that hug. When we let go, Alexia hugged Danielle and Anna just the same. Tears filled all our eyes now, even my mom's and Terry's. We sat in chairs next to Mr. Terupt's bed. We sat on both sides and said nothing. I placed my book on the stand next to his bed. Anna put her plant by the window, and Danielle tacked her sketch to a wall. We thought our own thoughts and stared at our teacher, who lay motionless with his eyes closed. Yet somehow I felt better. The power of Mr. Terupt, even in his coma, made something huge transpire. I felt light, like I could float. The past had been buried, and we were ready to move forward. When it came time to leave, I touched Mr. Terupt's hand and whispered, "Thank you." Then I walked out with my 3 friends. Alexia. There was no way I could stay away forever, especially after hearing Luke say he'd been to the hospital. I didn't have a dad to take me, and my mom was waiting tables from noon to closing time every day of the week now. That made it easy for me because there wasn't anyone at home to say, "Where do you think you're going?" or "You aren't going anywhere." I was still scared. I made my mind up and rode my bike there one day after school. I knew what room he was in because I heard Luke say it. When I got there, I went straight to the elevator and up to his floor. "Can I help you, honey?" one of the nurses asked as I hurried down the hall. I didn't look at her. I just shook my head, kept going until I found the room. I walked in. My hands flew to my mouth. I knew Teach couldn't move, but like I hadn't expected him to be hooked up to so many tubes. I stood frozen for a long time. Slowly, I found the courage to tiptoe closer to his bed. Hi, Teach, I said. It's Lexi. Already, I fought back tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have been mean to you. I wanted to hate you for saying those things to me. But you were right, Teach. I knelt next to his bed and pulled his blanket in my fist. Then the big tears came. Raindrop tears. They poured from me. I couldn't help it. I cried like I used to when Mom and Dad would fight. I sobbed for a few minutes before I wiped my face on his covers. Teach just looked like he was sleeping. Was he really going to die? Like, I'm doing better now, Teach. I'm not being mean. You'd be happy. I squeezed his blanket in my fist again and clenched my jaw to fight back more raindrop tears. Teach, like, there's something else I need to tell you. I'm not sure, but I think I saw Peter leaving here. Like, he's the one who threw the snowball, Teach. I know he didn't mean it. He didn't want this to happen. He loves you. All of us do. I dabbed my eyes with his blanket. I cried more now, but I kept talking to him. Peter hasn't, said anything in school. He hasn't talked to anyone, not a word. But no one's trying to talk to him either. He did throw the snowball, even if he didn't mean for it to hit you. So it's still his fault. I felt bad for Peter. Everything was such a mess, and I had so many mixed up feelings. I had my face in his blankets when I felt the tap on my shoulder. I looked up and Jessica was there, and so were Danielle and Anna. I hugged them. I told them I was sorry, and then it was over. All of a sudden, I had 3 friends. Teach helped me, even in his coma. I missed him so much. He had to wake up. I had never felt so happy and sad at the same time before. And next we're going to go to Anna. Here, the setting has been very gloom and doom in the hospital. So next time we're going to see what's happening. Hopefully you're feeling a lot better in your house and you're just nice and cozy listening to our story. Stay with me though as we come back. And lead on, guys.